Welcome to the Heart of Dad podcast. Heart of Dad is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are passionate about their families and business and looking to find more clarity, more balance and more alignment in all areas of their life. Come and join the community at heartofdad.com or on Facebook at groups/Heart of Dad. This week on Heart of Dad, I'm interviewing Rene Power. By day, Rene is a marketing consultant, trainer and speaker working with directors of family-run manufacturers and professional services companies to advance their marketing and business growth. He's run Vision B2B Marketing and Training Limited, based just outside Manchester since October 2015, after a 20-year career working client-side in manufacturing and marketing agencies came to an end. By night and at weekends, he's an active 45-year-old husband and dad of 4. Rene feels he's defined by being a success in work and is driven to be a role model in the importance of hard work and application to his children. The struggle and balance is real, as Rene shares his experiences in running a consultancy business, securing planning and training work, and also looking at monetising knowledge and amplifying his reach in hitting the online coaching at scale market. So this week on the Heart of Dad, I'm delighted to welcome Rene Power to the show. Welcome, Rene.
Hi there, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. It's great to have you here.
Yeah,
so,
I'm really
Rene,
looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Rene.
So my name's Rene Power, it's my real name. The name Rene was plucked from a French textbook by my mum and dad when my dad was at sixth form college. They were very young parents back then in 1974. And the Power obviously goes back to Tipperary Irish, I think back to grandparents and beyond. The family story is, I think in the 1850s, we had quite a large publishing empire in the family over the water, but one particular generation who inherited the family business proceeded to basically lose the business on, I would guess, drink and women and other ill-gotten pastimes. So as a family, we had to rebuild over. So I could have been, the 2020 version of Rupert Murdoch or something, I suppose, but the family went down a different path. A little bit of history there that I wasn't planning on sharing, but there you go. That's what you do on these podcasts, isn't it? So I'm an entrepreneur dad. I'm a dad of 4. So I've got a T-shirt on with the names on today. Classic Father's Day gift. So Oscar is 12 in 2 weeks' time. So he's 11, just gone to high school. So that's a pretty big milestone in our household, and has obviously had a bit of an impact on how I do my business. So Oscar's 11. We've got Isaac, who is just turned 9. We've got Jacob, who's 5. And then for the lols, we had another one quite by accident, and that's Ruby. So we got a pink one. And Ruby just turned 2 before Christmas. So we've got 11, 9, 5, and 2. So dad of 4, 45, work in marketing, worked in agencies for quite a long time, business to business, working with manufacturers, engineers, engineering companies, helping them sell their wares to companies that use their products and services. And in 2015, decided after a long courtship with working for myself, or certainly within my own head, the need to want to work for myself and be my own boss, finally took the plunge in 2015, and I'm going into my 5th year doing that. So that was just after Jacob was born. So I set up a business with 3 kids in 2015, and then, as I said, just for the lols, then had another one a couple of years further along the line. So yeah, it's been a really interesting few years, should we say.
I bet. I mean, I'd love to hear, there's loads of questions I've got just from that little bit, Rene, but what sort of tipped you from being employed to striking out on your own? I'm always interested in that story. Happy we'll get to that.
I mean, we can probably go way back, even before the kids, really. So I've always been quite ambitious and probably always looking for the next thing, the next move. After graduation in 95, I actually returned home to my hometown of Skelmersdale in Lancashire, lived at home for a bit and got a job with a safety equipment manufacturer, and I was with them for 4 years. By chance, got day release and funding to do Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications on the business. So when a marketing role came up in the business, I was the only candidate because I was the only one who was qualified. So I got a job in marketing. Did that for 2 years, and then looked to move from the company primarily because I was a marketing assistant working into a marketing director, so there wasn't really the scope within the team to, have somebody stepping up a level. So reluctantly left the business and relocated as well. So moved down to Cheshire and moved into the pharmaceutical space and worked in a number of agencies for about 6 or 7 years, working into some of the very large pharmaceutical companies around the world, people like AstraZeneca and Abbott Laboratories out of Chicago, GlaxoSmithKline, working on publication planning and things like that. So that took me through to about 2005. Got up to a fairly senior position, account directing, and again, so thought, I need to be looking at the next thing, the next move, what happens next, and moved to a training company that specialized in pharmaceutical marketing. And this was probably the first misstep. And back in those days, it was all about getting that incremental increase in salary. So it's probably the first move I made when I moved for the money. And probably didn't accurately the job role to see if it was the right thing to be doing. Cultural fit. And so as a result of that, I wasn't right for the role really, and after about 8 months of that, it was pretty clear on both sides. So I was let go, and that was the first of what would become 4 redundancies or consultations or whatever you want to call that between 2006 and 2010. And contextually, I think it's important to share that, because then when I move into later roles and when I start to want to work for myself, I think the seeds of that are in that period of time where, when you go through any kind of consultation process or redundancy, it can hit you quite hard, because it hits your self-worth and how you value yourself, and am I good enough? I thought I was good at this stuff that I do, but they don't want me, and and you can take it really personally. And I probably carried that around for a disproportionate amount of time, and to a point that it was probably impacting a lot of my future decisions. So I had this entrepreneurial thing in my mind, and probably during that period, I remember it well, sort of 2008-9, we had recessions, we had all sorts of things going on in the world and in business. And at that time, I kind of thought, I need to build a personal brand, because this has happened to me a couple of times, and I need to make myself employable if it was to happen again. So in 2009, I was blogging and using Twitter and building a profile and getting to speak at business marketing events and things like that. So I always fell into another job because I was very well networked and had a bit of a brand. So it came full circle about 2014, 2015, when I left a role after 4 years and was interviewing around small agencies. And the general feedback from managing directors in agencies around Manchester was, why don't you work for yourself? Because you've kind of got this brand, for all intents and purposes, you've been positioning like you work for yourself. So you're well connected, you've got a good reputation in what you do. So why don't you? And the nudge that I needed to convince me that that was the right thing to do. And, it's been hard, absolutely no question about it. It's been hard with all the extra kids, seemingly every year, another one being added, the cash flow and all of that stuff. I'm in marketing because I'm probably not a natural salesperson. There is a difference, I think, between marketing and salespeople. So that side of things can be a bit of a challenge. But hand on heart, haven't looked back, and wish I'd obviously done it years ago. So a lot potentially in there, but I thought it's probably useful to share.
Such a brilliant story.
We are all a product of our environment. We're all a product of the experiences that we either choose to take decisions and then follow those processes, or things that happen to us and we have no control over them, but we have to react to them and deal with them. So I'm definitely a product of particularly that 4-year spell, probably between 2006 and 2010, that led me to have certain feelings about myself and the profession and all that sort of thing.
Such a great story, and I think a lot of people could resonate with going through that sort of cycle of redundancy and what it does to your self-image and self-esteem. And I love the way that you came out of that and decided, okay, this is how I'm going to kind of inoculate myself against that experience by building my personal brand. And
yeah, and I think, and now in 2020, that personal branding thing is so important. It's probably the most important thing, and everybody's walking around with their phones on, diarising and journaling what they're doing and what they're eating and where they're at and events they're at, because they want to leave a stamp. They want to show that, they bring some value and some good to, environments they're in and people that they're networking with. So that personal brand thing has probably got even more important now. We're all essentially, citizen journalists with high definition cameras and recording and internet. It's so easy, it's so easy to be able to do that, almost why wouldn't you? So yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that also struck me in your story, and you're not the only one who's had this experience, and it's been my experience. I only have one child, but my child was born and I started my business kind of within the same month. There's a story there to tell, right? But it's not about me today, it's about you. But I'm really curious about the timing, of starting your business and having your third child, and how those two things kind of intersected in your life.
Yeah, so at the end, I had these 3 or 4 redundancies that were probably a spiral from that initial role I talked about, where I moved for the money, and then that didn't work out. So I'm then in a position where I've certainly got one child to feed. I've got to find a job pretty quickly. So I then take another job with a smaller agency, and again, quickly realizing that's not right either. I'm not naming anybody today, but I was working with a small design and consultancy agency that were wanting to attract public sector clients, and they deemed that it would be good to have somebody come in and do a business development role in this little team of sort of 5 or 6 people. And here's a list of people, and here's some phone numbers, and da 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 da. And having never really done any work like that before, I quickly realised that cold calling the public sector is not the way to win business in that space. So we hammered it. We went to events. We tried to push the flesh. We did all sorts of things. We ran campaigns. We case studied work that we'd done. But after 5 or 6 months, we didn't get anywhere with it. So I'm being sat down again and saying, this thing we've tried to do here hasn't really worked. And 2 weeks notice. And it's the 10th of December. So it's literally out of a job, no money before Christmas. So it was harsh. And I did the same thing I always did. So I then emailed a couple of MDs at agencies that I quite liked the look of, and said, look, I've just been made available, have you got anything coming up? A few of them bit, when I had some meetings, and then I've got a job lined up for January, because that was the way that I kind of went about my job searches. And that took me through that period. But again, always falling into roles or into the wrong company at the wrong time. So that agency then in 2007-8 was massively hit by the recession. We had big construction and building products clients and financial sector, and they were the 2 things that were hit the most. Yeah, so the people stopped investing and people stopped building. So we lost all those clients overnight, and that agency kind of it didn't fall apart, but its management team certainly got decimated. A lot of people had to be taken out of the business to kind of reduce costs. So then again, moving from that into another, I need to find a job quickly, not doing due 8 or 9 months. So that was that story of those kind of 4 years. I then did fall into an agency role where I stayed for 4 or 5 years, really enjoyed it. And then a change in direction at the top of the business 4 or 5 years in led to a position in November 2014 where I'm leaving that business without anything lined up. And at this point, my wife's pregnant. To come back to your point, I probably laboured it a little bit, but to come back to your point, so Jacob came in March 15. So I'm there November 14 thinking, I want to work for myself. And my wife's like, can you just get a job? Because I can't deal with everything I've got to deal with a third child, 2 little ones going to school, and a new one. And I want to, we'd had other things at home to do with, C-sections and, maternal depressions and all this sort of thing with previous babies. So there were certain things going there where she wanted to have as calm a pregnancy and do have certain things at the end of that process that she said, can you just get another job? So I did. So I defaulted to my approaching agency MDs who I liked and trusted and said, look, here I am again. Can we have a chat? And I got a role. And was there 6 months. So into the next year, Jacob's born, recovery, all the rest of it. And we're getting back to normal. And I'm like, this business isn't for me. This is the time I've got to work for myself. I tried for you, but I've got to do this for me now. This thing is just eating away at me. Yeah, I've got to give this a go. And I think the big turning point was I'd started at this point as Jacob, the third child, was born in 2015, to start to do some work on the side. So you hear about, Gary Vaynerchuk and these people now talking about the side hustle. So, the best way to dip your water in the world of working for yourself, if you can, is to start but do it alongside a day job, so you've got that safety net. Yeah. So Gary Vaynerchuk, for guys who maybe haven't heard of this guy listening to the podcast, he's an American entrepreneur, took on his dad's wine business, one store in New Jersey, turning over $3 million a year, and turned it into a 60 million online business, primarily through doing YouTube videos and a show on YouTube called Wine Library. He's since become a massive social media influencer, talking about all things entrepreneurship and, starting businesses and that kind of thing. And his big shtick, as they call it over in the States, is the side hustle. So his argument is, if you go to work and do, 9 to 5, come home, have tea, do your thing. I use the word tea there because I'm a northern boy, or dinner. And then do your side hustle 7 till midnight in the evening. So if you're a designer or a copywriter or a web developer or whatever it is, have those few hours every day while you're doing it, learning your craft, getting known, getting some work. And then you get to the point where you can flip the switch, because you're realizing, hey, if I did this thing full time, I'd be probably better off than I am at the moment. And that's where I was. So come October 2015, but it was really July 2015, I'd handed in my notice, resigned from the board, and said, right, this is it. This is where I'm going to go. And that's where me working for myself and the business kind of grew from. So it was October 15, from that place of getting the confidence and having people giving me work and doing some stuff on the side, that really made me think, do you know what, we can make a go at this. And having almost conceded when the third child was coming, yeah, okay, I will take one more job, but I really don't want to. I want to work for myself, but you need low stress right now. So that's where it kind of came together.
I love that story, because there's kind of the pragmatism of, okay, you've got mouths to feed and you want to de-stress the environment for your wife who's expecting. Yeah. So okay, you take on that job, but there's this kind of deeper burning desire, which is interesting, right? To
absolutely, yeah. And fueled by this, and I'm not a big believer in star signs and things, but I'm an Aries. I'm probably middle class. I got a degree, and I went and got educated and worked in professional services businesses. And I've got an ego, I've got pride. I want to. Work defines me, and I was thinking about some of these concepts coming into our, and I think maybe one of the things that is is a trend that might come out of some of your interviews is this. Yeah, it's not a calling as such, but there's something innate in us as men, as breadwinners, as providers, and then the ego thing, and when you kind of mush all that stuff together, it's quite a powerful sort of recipe, isn't it? There's something chemical going on there, I think. So it makes, there's a bit of a drive towards it. I think once you feel it, it's very difficult to put it away to one side and say, it's okay, I can feel it, but I don't need to do it. I really had to act on it.
Yeah. Really did that. And also you kind of, it's not that you ignored it, because you did pay attention, but you you kind of had to put a lid on it for quite a while for all sorts of practical reasons, but it keeps coming back, right? You can't.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So what was it like in those early days when you just gone for yourself, and you had your new baby and your two other boys?
Yeah. So in October 15, we will have had. So Oscar would have been 7, so he'd have been comfortably in primary school. Isaac would have been, but he's 22, so he'd have been going to primary school as well. He'd have probably been in reception. New baby at home, and we had a little bit of money because I'd been doing some side work, and some quite lucrative side work actually. I friend of a friend of a friend, which is the networking thing. You know, I've had a LinkedIn profile since 2006. You know, I've got thousands of connections on there, and you know, I've got I'd written a blog for years, spoken at events for years, and in my roles in agencies, you know, I moved from being client service account management into more a business development and marketing role. So in 2 or 3 agencies I worked in before going out on my own, my remit very much was do what we need to do to make everybody that we want to approach know who we are, and that comes through you as being almost the face of the agency. So business development meant being responsible for the marketing function as well. So that was, you know, blogging strategies, it was putting on webinars, seminars, speaking at events, industry events, and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I was fortunate that my role allowed me to do all of that, such that I had the connections. So when I was working my notice between July and October, in advance of going out on my own, I kind of secured, you know, some speaking opportunities to Chartered Institute of Marketing groups, you know, and I remember on the day that I went out on my own, I went to Sheffield and spoke to 50 people at a business festival or something like that. So on my first day working for myself, I was on stage to kind of 55 people, which was pretty cool. The groundwork that I'd put in was starting to deliver some conversations that wouldn't actually convert until probably after the Christmas. So if you look at the numbers, the first 3 months my first 3 months in business, which were October to December 15, I didn't invoice a penny. We were living on kind of what was in the bank, savings from, you know, a couple of, you know, leaving agencies and payoffs and things like that. But come January, you know, I was fortunate that I'd landed some retained clients, some training and planning work, which I still do all of that stuff right through to today. But it took a while. It took a while to get it off the ground, to be honest, and it was a bit squeaky bum at times. And there's been some horrific highs and lows throughout that period. You know, I've been very fortunate to land some very good, lucrative projects, some good training work, but then some of those things naturally come to an end, and you have some big gaps in the forward forecast, and some of them are not easy to replace. So I think one of the biggest challenges has been when you work for yourself, and unless you scale quickly and get the support in that you know you probably should have, is you win the work, you do the work, and then the work's done. Shit, I've got to go and win some more work. And that's the cycle that you're in. And it would be nice to have you win the work. Okay, so some of that's coming to an end. I've got to continually do the business development stuff. But you have a finite number of hours. Oh, and you've got all these kids screaming and they want you home for tea at bedtime and they want stories, or somebody's sick. So, you know, someone's got to go to school, somebody's got to stay at home. So, you know, when you work for yourself, I think there is probably a feeling at home, and I'm talking about other partner when I use this word, that, you know, if I was working position involved in that stuff, now I'm getting called all the time. Can you just come home and do this? Can you work at home today? Can you stay in for that? Can you take them there? Oh, it's hailstone, and can you pick the kids up from school because I'm not well? All of that. So when you're working for yourself, and you're working for yourself at home, which through those 4 years I've had spells of having working in co-working open spaces. I've had a couple of 6-month spells in offices. Right now I've got my own space about 15 minutes walk from home, so it's just enough of a distance to be able to say no when I have to, but large spells working at home. And yeah,
how does that play out, Rene? Because I mean, I can really resonate with that. I also work from home, and being on call in a different way from if you're employed and working in an office or wherever you are.
Yeah, and and it's not saying that people don't understand it, and and all being well, my better half will listen to this at some point, and I'm not in any way saying anything that is in any way detrimental to how we manage the challenges that we have at home. But if you're there in the building, then there is probably a feeling, even if the door to the bedroom's shut, that dad's in the house, let's go and say hello, can you do this, can you do that, can you finish early, etc.
How does that play out in your own mind, Rene? Are you cool with that? Do you flex really easily with it, or do you get
I've been I bet if you ask my wife honestly how I've been through this 5 years of working for myself, she'd probably say there's been spells when he's been absolutely unbearable, and he probably doesn't communicate what's going on, so I don't know why he's like that. And she's got her own challenges. She's managing all these kids and getting them all to school and doing some brilliant stuff, and managing the household and everything that goes with that. And some challenging parental situations and things as well. So she's got a full load as well. But because I'm so consumed and so driven by the work and making the work, I think there have been spells over time where I've probably been a nightmare actually. And I've realised that certainly in probably the last 12 months, if not longer. I do, there have been spells where, I'd get up early and I'd work solid. And if I was doing networking events or going out and seeing clients, I'd have to come back and do that day's work and work late into the evening. And then you're not sleeping, you're just a bit of a pain to be around because you're trying to balance everything. And I'm a lot better at that now. I have, generally improved, getting more sleep than I probably ever have. Not burning the candle at both ends. Trying to work ahead, manage the diary a bit, and maybe accept where things are just not going to happen that day, and let the right people know that it's not going to happen today, and not actually get too stressed about it.
I was going to say, imagine your stress levels.
Yeah, you've got to. With 4 of them now, parents' evenings and, football after school and activities, you don't want to miss that stuff. And, one of the reasons I think most people, well, I'd say probably there's probably 3 reasons why most people work for themselves. 1, because they think they could probably be better off working for themselves. 2, because they get to a point where they probably think they're unemployable and think, I don't want to work for anybody else because I'm just going to end up killing somebody. And 3, because actually I want that balance. I want the family time. I want the kid time. I want to work, hard but smart and enjoy the benefits of that. So I want the holidays. I want to be able to take days off with them at half term and not just have a normal week at work, working 9 to 5. So or stop at 3 and go and take on the park in the summer. And that, I think, while you're busy delivering and busy chasing the next paycheck, it's hard. I think
really hard. I think
certainly in the first few years, particularly if you're a service business and you're operating very transactionally, because you're selling your time, you're getting things done, you're selling your time. So if I sell more time, I can make more money, but then I've got more work to do, and I've got to squeeze the work in around dinners and bedtimes and school and this and that and these things, and it just gets all a bit stressy because deep in your heart you've taken too much on. But the household's expensive, so you need the money so you're in a bit of a cycle.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like you're finding your way through that, and I can totally resonate. Like the first few years of starting up a business are particularly challenging, I think, in all sorts of ways. I've been exploring with people the concept of balance, and it's a word you've used in the podcast already as well. What do you see as a way of finding balance between kind of this inevitable pull of business and trying to create your business, and the inevitable pull of your family as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think routine's really important in our household, and right from when they're little, our children, we've had all of them in routines, when it comes to kind of sleeps and feeding, and we followed certain, people's approaches to this, and some people agree with it, and some people don't. In the main, it worked for us. So our children are in the main good sleepers. They'll eat most of the stuff you put in front of them. You know, 3 of them are boys, so you got to work them hard so they're tired enough so they go to bed at the right time and go to sleep. So I can generally now work out, I can plan my week in the knowledge that I know what a Monday is going to be like and what time I need to finish, and what's happening and where I need to be. And I can do that through the week now, so that you know, I'm being a little bit more tougher with myself on, you know, what commitments I take on work wise, and equally sometimes, you know, if I do need to kind of work a late one, or, you know, heaven forbid, do an all-nighter, which, you know, I do occasionally, to get something done if I'm on a deadline, because I'm still in a delivery focused role, I suppose, for most of my clients. It's just, yeah, managing it and knowing that, you know, in the same way, you know, I can't expect my wife to manage all of that stuff with the kids. You know, they do need to see dad, and I think it's important as well that they see why I work and what I'm doing, and what it contributes to the house. And you go on this holiday because daddy went and did this work, and they think I teach. They think I go out and teach people how to do the stuff that I do, because, you know, marketing's a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. So in their heads, I think if they were asked, they'd say, well, daddy goes and teaches and he talks and he kind of speaks and does various things for people, and he does advertising websites, you know. So they kind of understand it at a level they need to understand it. You know,
but they can also see they can also see physically that you're working, right? Because if you're
I think the key I think one of the key things is, yeah, if you want balance, you've got to be very clear. So if you're working at home, you know, it's about if the door's open or shut, if there's a sign on it, if you're going to put a thing on it, a slidey thing that says, you know, daddy's in here till 5, or call, do not disturb, or whatever it is. But agreeing the basics of what a work day looks like, and when disruptions and distractions can and can't happen. If you're working at home, that's super important. But I find it works well for me here, 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk from the house, because, you know, the primary school kids will kick out, and then they're FaceTiming at 3:30. How you doing, Dad? Good day. You know, you coming home for tea at 6, blah, blah, blah. And because I've got an office space now, I have kind of fallen into a, you know, 8 to 5, 9 to 6 sort of a day, which, again, isn't really what I wanted to be doing. But right now, it kind of works. I mean, today, for example, I kind of thought, you know what, I need to get a run in. So I did a 5K at lunchtime and went home and had a shower, lunch with the 2-year-old daughter. She's gone to sleep for the afternoon. I come back to the office and, you know, prepared for this and done some other bits and pieces. So, you know, giving yourself that space and that permission to kind of do what you need to do when, but, you know, maybe not being too hard on yourself. And that's the difficult thing when you're building something, when you're growing it, when you're building your profile, your reputation, trying to get out there. I've had those spells where, even if I'm sat watching TV or watching a football match or watching a film that I'm really into, I'm thinking, I could be on LinkedIn sending connections. I could be doing this. I could be writing a blog. I could be doing something else. I could be multitasking now and doing something for my business, because Gary Vaynerchuk said, always be hustling, always be doing this, always be doing that. And sometimes you've got to say, no, actually, for my sanity and for the sanity of the people around me, I'm not going to sit here with a laptop on my knee tonight. And it, you know, I'm not perfect. I do it some nights. I did it last night. I won't be doing it tonight. And you got to see it and sometimes check yourself sometimes. But having 4 kids is a balancer, because, you know, they all need stuff at different times, and you have to ultimately react and respond.
yeah, totally. So that brings me on to sort of another topic I've been exploring with other dads who are entrepreneurs, and kind of we've been skirting around it a little bit, and that's the topic of guilt. Right. And I think, you know, you've been really painting a brilliant picture of how you try and manage that need to be flexible between kind of the pools of your business and the pools of your family. But
I can give you a really tangible, topical example of this, and you know, and when this is released and I share it out in some of my kind of friends and some of the other dads, you know, hopefully come and have a listen. You know, they might be a little bit you know, surprised when I say this, but, you know, I've got a 9-year-old who's in a football team, and it's a very well managed football club. They've got, you know, age groups from sort of 7 up to 16 or 18 or something. They've got 2 or 3 teams at each age group. Is very well run. You know, they've got some high profile ex-England internationals, you know, working alongside them and stuff. And they do an annual trip somewhere. So last year they took everybody to Barcelona and they got to play at the Nou Camp. And for a number of reasons, last year we didn't go. He was 8 last year, and well, probably one of the primary reasons was probably the money. It would have cost best part of £1,000 for us, for the two of us to go for this weekend. It was a fallen in May half term, when we as a family normally try and do something together as well. And also, I think in my mind, I'm conscious that, I live in a part of the country where, there's a lot of spoiled kids, and it's true. And people living in Wilmslow might laugh if when they hear this, but I think it's probably true, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of people with a lot of money, and, kids get what they want. And I felt there was an element of taking an 8-year-old off on a trip to play at Barcelona. Would he really appreciate that? And would he look back on that even when he was a teenager, and feel and understand quite what a thing that was to do? And so from that perspective, we didn't do it. Now they're doing the trip this year. They're going over to PSG in Paris in May, and all through the period of talking about it, I was like, yeah, we're going to go this time. We're going to go this time. And I've had to say yesterday, we can't go. And I've had to sit down with him and just say to him, look, mate, it's the money again, to be honest. I planned a number of things in January that for various reasons haven't come off. The cash flow is not quite yet there. This is real world stuff. It would have cost us about £1,400 just for me and him to go to Paris for the weekend, stay where we're staying, play the tournament at the stadium. I mean, he's great. He didn't be like, oh, Dad, whatever. And part of me was thinking, do you know what? If I sold an extra 2 marketing planning sessions that I do, I'd cover it. But then I'm thinking, and being a responsible business person, I've got VAT coming up. I've got self-assessment. I've got corporation tax. I've got all these things in the business, and and the family will want a holiday as well at some point. There's that pressure. I've got to, do the right thing and say, look, at this point right now, it's not something we can do. And yeah, I feel guilty as hell about that, because the thing about not saying we couldn't go last year was that we'll do it next year. Yeah. And here I am, essentially letting him down again. So mitigating that by saying, but listen, what we're going to do is we're going to go and get tickets for this match. We're going to go to that concert. We're going to go and see that WWE thing. We'll do all these other things, and it'll be all right. And he's like, yeah, cool, Dad. Yeah, Dad, that's cool. You never quite know if he's thinking that on the inside. I've got to take him at face value. And there's little things like that, all the time. Their birthdays are all bunched up in the first 4 or 5 months of the year, which shows you what we always typically got up to in the summer beforehand. So we got Christmas, then I've got 5 birthdays, all before Easter. So it's a very expensive time of the year. And yeah, so that guilt thing, and it's particularly around being able to afford things and give them the things that you think you should be able to. That is probably the thing that eats away the most. That's a real topical, tangible thing that I hope other listeners can. But I think again, with these things, it's how you handle it. It's how you communicate it. And I think it's important that they know we're not made of money. We live in an affluent town, just outside Manchester, but we don't live in one of the best streets, in one of the best houses. We don't drive the best cars. We're not going skiing in February and 4 holidays a year and Dubai in October at half term like other people might. We do what we do. We manage what we manage. I think it's important that they understand that as well, actually. But yeah, if I could afford to do a few extra things a year, I probably would.
Yeah, that's such a great story, and thank you for sharing it. I think people would resonate with it, and I love that. That's kind of the realness of it, isn't it? It kind of that to me is exactly the connection's gone a bit. I think that's exactly that's the intersection of heart of dad, isn't it? Because you've got you're working your socks off to try and make this business a success. It's a passion for you. But there's also a place where the rubber hits the road, and that is, the finances of the family.
I think, whenever anybody says, oh, if you run your own business, you've got to have a why, your Simon Sinek Golden Circle, you've got to have a why. And what's the why? And the why is invariably to spend more time with the people that you care about and to give them the sort of things that you want to be able to give them. So ultimately it always comes back to the wife and kids, doesn't it? And wanting to make them proud, but if they're too young to understand that or appreciate that, but to appreciate that, you know, they get a nice holiday, or they get this, or they get that, or they get these other things, which are probably a little bit materialistic, but when you've got kids, that's the reality. Or experiences, you know, we generally try and go down the road of experiences and try and get to cool places and do cool things. You know, and try and do that, because you know, you want, when they're older, to appreciate, you know, time well spent. And I think there's probably a move back to that, you know, in parenting now. You know, it's like we're starting to move through the devices and the video games, hopefully, and getting back to, now let's all get out and go for a walk at the weekend and go and do this, or whatever it is. And I think that stuff's really important. It's a good grounding. But yeah, you know, to your point about the whole guilt thing, you know, there are moments and times, and probably more than there should be, but there are also great levelers, you know, for you to just remember, actually, why is it that I took us all down this path? And that's another point to make as well, you know, but in choosing this life, you know, I'm dragging everybody else along through it as well, you know, and it's not consequently, you know, straightforward for everybody else. You know, we could be better off if I was a marketing director in a FTSE 100, you know, pulling down an easy 6-figure salary a year, but that might precipitate me living in London three days a week, 3 nights a week to do that. You know, my wife would get the security that she craves financially. I'd never be at home. And I think that's probably one of the other key drivers and the things to think about, is that quality of life, isn't it? It's, you know, do you want to be that guy in that corporate job doing that thing and miss your kids growing up? Because once they hit teenage, you know, you kind of, that's the moment for gone, isn't it? You know, they're going to do the high school thing. If they then move away and study, and then you kind of redevelop a relationship in your 20s with parents, is certainly the way I kind of look at my own experience. But there's some wilderness years there, which actually then make 0 to 16 really bloody important. You know, one of the drivers for me right now, you know, taking that point forward, is Oscar's 12 soon. So we're thinking, probably got 4 more family summer holidays before he probably won't want to come with us anymore. He's going to want to go with his mates, or go to festivals, or stay at home and have parties while we're away, whatever that is. We've only got a few more left. So I've got to work to make sure we can have a holiday every year. So that's a little bit of an extra pressure, but it's coming from a place of, you know, compassion, I suppose. And but it's, you know, so that's driving some of my kind of thinking and focus on work at the moment as well. Because you're almost like, you've got a window of time, particularly with him.
Yeah, I think a lot of us would, you know, recognise what you're saying there, Rene. I just want to switch tack a little bit, and kind of the other part of the question I've been asking people around guilt is anger. Okay. So, you know, I've been very upfront in these podcasts about my own relationship at times with anger as a dad, and you know, struggling with that. And I just wanted to know, you know, there are pressures when you run a business, and maybe it's got nothing to do with running a business, but you know, I wanted to hear about what your relationship with anger is and how it plays out with
I've probably, you know, I hinted at, you know, the whole Aries thing and a bit of ego and pride and things. If you start really assessing, you know, what you think drives you as a person, you know, what are you like and what kind of triggers you, and then look at the experiences that you've been through, you know, to get to the point where you are now, or maybe to the point where, you know, I started this working for myself thing 4.5 years ago, and therefore the amount of emotion that I invest in it to make sure it works, then yeah, when it doesn't, somewhere else, that means I can't focus on it and deliver it to the level or the depth that I want to, then it's going to cause some problems. You know, there's going to be some, you know, outbursts or responses or whatever to that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me, because I feel that I am defined by my work and defined by how successful I am, or I think I am. And it's not like in a 10x, you know, I don't want to be a millionaire and that will define my success. It's not about that. It's about being at a level ultimately financially where, you know, I can pay the bills and put a bit away. you know, and that would be ideal. But then when I get to that, yeah, I'll probably want a little bit more. But it's probably a lifestyle business, and I would like to get to a point where I am maybe working smarter. Maybe I'm doing, you know, the classic group one-to-many thing, rather than having single, you know, transactional clients. And I've dabbled with all of that sort of stuff. So I think all of that plays a part in this mixed up, you know, recipe of stuff that's in here, that leads to, you know, the guilt and the angers. And it could be, yeah, snapping at the kids, and they haven't really done anything wrong. It's just bad timing that they decide to have a kick-off now, and they're arguing about a remote control or who's watching what, where's the torch, you know, somebody's in the shower and someone's flushed the toilet, and da-da-da, whatever it is. And they are probably, how should we say, unreasonably reprimanded. You know, they're overly punished. Yeah. And that could be like, you know, you've bypassed the naughty step. They've gone straight to bed without, you know, whatever. You know, it's like, just get in there, shut the door, lights off. That's you done for the night. And they're like, God, I only did that thing. You know, he did all this yesterday, and he never even got put on the step for a minute or whatever. So there's probably where there's triggers, you know, and it's disproportionate responses. Yeah. So I would say that that's certainly something there. And yeah, but I think now, having the 10 or 15 minute walk back to the house, or if I'm out and about, you know, I've got a client I spend Mondays with in Sheffield, so Manchester to Sheffield, so I've got a nice an hour and 40-minute drive back to calm down. You've got that time to exactly do that, to calm down and get in the zone and be prepared for what's going to happen at home when 4 kids belt towards you and they want that attention because they've not seen you all day, and, you know, Mrs. wants you to do X, Y, Z because, you know, she's had a busy day and has no understanding of what my day's been like. So I've got that time to be prepared for that. If you work at home, you haven't. You can hear them all around the house already. You're thinking, right, I've got to go downstairs and get into all that, and my head's banging, and I've not finished what I needed to do today, and it's just waiting for it, isn't it? So you've got to somehow find a way to give yourself that little bit of time. And I know you coach, you know, in various areas, but I think what's one of the big things is, you know, I would imagine having that time to just in the mornings warm up and get in the zone, but equally at the end of the day to calm down and come out of the zone and be ready to reacclimatize with the other world.
Spot on.
Because when you don't, and I guess this is where, you know, this trend comes from, is you just launch from one thing over here that you've not adequately finished with and dealt with into some other situation. Combustive. Yeah,
it's a great insight, Rene. I think that decompression moment is so important right now. When you've been speaking about that, I've just been thinking about the importance of taking care of yourself in all this, because I think, you know, you kind of alluded to burning the candle at both ends at times, and kind of the pressures, financial, and, you know, all the others that you have as an entrepreneur and being a dad. So yeah, what, you know, you talked about the run today, and you talked about having that 15-minute walk. What else do you do to kind of keep body and mind and soul together?
Well, personally for me, I realised quite early on, I mean, when we had the first child, you know, we had gym memberships and all sorts, and we, you know, I can't remember at the time whether it was a money-led thing or whatever it was, but we let the gym memberships go and never really joined gyms again. So I've played five-a-side with different groups over the years. You know, I've been a runner on and off. So I've always tried to have, you know, those physical activities. I've got some kit at home in a garage out back. If I really need to go and punch something, there's something there I can go and punch. But yeah, at the moment, I would say it's probably more the running. And to give that some structure, I probably book race spots. So as of right now, I'm actually training for the Manchester Marathon, which is on April the 5th. So I've got a fair few weeks to get into shape for that. So I'm comfortable at 2-hour half. You know, I have done one marathon before, but I didn't really prepare for that. So it feels like it's my first marathon, really. It'll be my marathon PB. I'm not really counting the London one from 10 years ago. So I'm driven. You know, I generally set goals for everything, and I have to-do lists, and I want to achieve things. So, you know, I thought, you know, if we can work on just improving the sleep a little bit, not burning the candle at both ends, really slimming down at work on the things that I want to be doing and who I want to be doing it with, and getting down to maybe 2 or 3 core product offerings. So I'm not trying to be everything to everyone, and that's another thing in the past. It's been, as a marketing person, there's so many different types of work you can do for so many different types of customers and clients. If you try and be everything to everyone, as you know, you end up being nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
So that creates some clarity in the head as well, because I'm not having to sell 25 different things that I do. But I would say a little bit of exercise, healthy eating, but not that healthy. Time with the kids, evenings and weekends. There's going to be story time. There's going to be nights where we're going to stay and watch a movie, activities all through the week, and at weekends, kids' parties, all sorts of stuff. So,
Yeah.
I try and not work at the weekends. It's not always achievable. There are some things you can put in place as a business, obviously on the software side, to mitigate some of the admin. So like I moved to Xero, and Xero's been brilliant from the accountancy side of things, invoicing and all that good stuff. I'm playing with HubSpot CRM for CRM and integrating email into that. And I'm using Calendly now for appointments and setting up all these Zoom calls and all this sort of thing. So even this week, just, bite-sized 30-minute sessions, in the calendar, send people the link, they book the session, and all of that just makes things easier.
Yeah.
Because I think actually it's not always the work that stresses people out when you're working for yourself. It's either the finding additional work or just the admin that sits around it. Because it's always the stuff you'll leave to last, like self-assessment forms. How many of your listeners are going to be doing self-assessment forms 2 days before the deadline?
Yeah.
Probably you. Because it's something that you'll leave to evenings and weekends, But then that in itself, I've been that dad, and I talked about this at Small Networking a few years back. I was that dad shooing the kids away while I'm sat doing invoicing at weekends or whatever it is, and it's like, it's the bloody weekend. What am I doing? They're just coming along. They want to play. It's like, Dad, it's Saturday. You can play in the garden. It's like, I've got to sit and do this. It's madness because you're not using your time properly or efficiently or effectively. So, yeah, there's quite a lot.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
going on. But yeah, certainly from the great word you use, decompression. How do you, swelling at the end of the day because you've had this day? How do you just relieve that? And it can be something as simple as taking that 10-minute walk home, or with the podcast in your ears, or some blast of music just to shake it out. Whatever it is, a bit of sport, bit of running. Guys need to get out and spend more time with other guys. I don't do that particularly. It's definitely an area I think that a lot of guys would benefit from.
That's a great one.
Just one final thing. I think my peer group of dads, certainly of the primary school kids, I don't think there's many that work for themselves. So if I'm posting on Facebook about, I'm doing this thing, and blah, 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 your friends don't typically like stuff if you're working for yourself. Yeah, we know that, right? There's some weird psychology to it. Because they're all employed and they don't get it. They don't get, why would you do that? Why would you be selling things on Facebook posts? It's like, do you know why? Because I'm not employed. But consequently, there's been times cash flow wise where I know there's groups going out and you can't go out, or you're not in the right headspace to want to go out because they're all going to be talking yachts and ski holidays and da 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 da, and you're like, that is just not my world. That's not my world. I don't get that. And I think I don't think it's peculiar to where I live. I just think if you're a self-employed person and you're professional service and you've had the highs and lows and all of that and quite a lot of pressure, don't get me wrong, employed people, a lot of pressure, in different ways, but the money's coming every month. Yeah, whether you hit a target, whether you had a great month, you have actually got to work for it, and if it's not there, then it's not going to magically appear in the bank on Friday. And that's a bit of a driver. So I've probably been, you talk about guilt, a little bit guilty and answering your point about looking after yourself, of retreating from groups, maybe even from friendships where, we're just in different places. You just don't, you don't get me. If I sat down and tried to explain how I'm feeling and what the pressures are at home, money, this, work, whatever, you go, oh yeah, that's terrible. You might offer a solution or two, but you don't really get it, you know.
I think it's just maybe think there's a topic in itself for one of these podcasts around isolation and loneliness.
Well be. Yeah, I think there's something in that, particularly if you're working for yourself and you spend a lot of time on your own, and then that's where, you know, the networking industry has kind of come alive, isn't it, to kind of plug that gap, so that people working on their own at home, of which there are millions of us, and a good proportion of them will be blokes, of all disciplines, you know, coaches, marketers, designers, web development, ICAs, whatever they are, you know, and if I do this all week, I'm going to go mad. I got to go and have breakfast with some people and just talk to other people running businesses. And that's how that industry has, you know, it's taken a lot of money from people, you know, because they think they've been conditioned to need that, but they probably do need something. Yeah, I would probably say there's an element of that in there. So whether that falls into the guilt category or the self-care, but yeah, again, thinking, you know, that might resonate with people listening. I think, yeah, I get that. There's great groups online, you know, on Facebook, the Dad's Net groups and things, and they're starting to arrange meetups around the country and stuff. So you can find that kind of thing if you've still got, you know, your football legs, you know, go and find a five-a-side game, and, you know, there's ways and means, I think, to if you need a bit of that, you know, companionship. And it's not like, whoa, daily story, look at you know, all of that. It's not, you know, we're all beyond that. It's not that kind of male bonding, is it?
No.
It's sharing the same space and kind of having a bit of a, you know, a bit of a release or a bit of a break, I think. This has been listeners to do that.
This has been brilliant, Rene. I've really heard so much kind of honesty, and
it was great to meet you and get a chance to come and have a chat.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So if we want to find out more about you, where do we need to go?
Okay, so websites as ever are always in development, but if you go to Vision B2B, so the letter B, number 2, letter B.co.uk, there is a page there that's outlining some of the things that I'm doing. So it starts with £99 Zoom calls where we can start looking at all aspects of how you position and promote yourself and your business. We could be looking at how you're using LinkedIn, your website, just have a chat about kind of how you're going about promoting your business. If we want to get into a bit more of a deeper relationship there, I provide what we call done for you marketing services. So that is actually, you know, writing and getting your website built, sorting out PR, getting your speaking gigs, whatever you need or you think you need to, you know, attract the customers that you want to attract. And then we do planning days. I can come into the business, and if it's a bigger business with a management team, I can take you through a process of aligning what the business wants to be doing, sales objectives that you're going to put in place to achieve that, and then a marketing plan that will drive that through. So, you know, few areas, but it's all, you know, basically marketing-led growth, I suppose. And this phrase I use, positioning expertise. So if you're good at what you do and you want to be seen as an expert to a certain type of customer, you know, that's what I help people with.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic. So I'll get that in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me for the last hour. I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for asking us. And again, you know, people listening to this, feel free to drop us any questions, comments, and we'll get back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rene.
Cool.